All right, let's dive into the 2024 plans. Well, thank you so much for joining us for episode 5. If you missed episode 4, I had an incredible episode with my good friend Ross, and we talked a lot about leadership on stage. We talked about topics like how do you deal with a problematic person on the team from a worship perspective and also from a production perspective, and various other topics. Ross is an amazing musician and has a litany of knowledge. So if you missed episode 4, please go back and check that out. But this is episode 5, so let's jump into that. And it is January. It is brutally cold out here in Columbus, Ohio. I couldn't actually ask anybody in good conscience to come and join me on the podcast because, well, it's cold and it's snowing or some variation of liquid precipitation at any given time. I have some windows out here, if you're watching on YouTube, to my left side, which is, I don't even know what side of the camera it is, but anyway, out here, and it's pitch black, even though it's should be still light outside because, well, it's doing some kind of snowing of some sort. But anyway, you get just me today, and we are right on the eve of my team and I going to CES, which is Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. For the first time in my whole life, I'm so excited to go to CES. I have wanted to go to CES almost my whole life, or as long as I've been old enough to know what CES is. And a couple of the people from my team are going with us. So very excited for this trip. And, I just kind of want to explain to everybody why we're going to CES and what it means. And the simple reality is that CES is one of the biggest trade shows for consumer products out there on the market. And by getting the opportunity to go to CES, we get to get out there and connect with people just like you. So if you're going to be at CES, I know that this pod is going up in the middle of the week, during the week of CES, so be sure to hit me up pretty quick. But if you're at CES, do leave a comment on the YouTube or send me an email, sales@thepenn.group. I'd love to connect with you. Anyway, the purpose of getting out to CES is several-fold. The primary one is just networking. I'd like to meet you, and I'd like to meet people out there who are interested in audio and interested in some of the things that we're trying to do later on down the line here. Very exciting opportunity to get out to CES, but this is less about CES and more about audio, so let me tell you more about that. It is 2024, and as I announced on podcast episode number 1, all the way back on the OG podcast, you have to go to the middle of that podcast to find this very important announcement. But if you missed it, you get to hear it again right here on episode 5. In 2024, I, Austin Harman, my company, we are bringing our first products to market under the brand name Austin Harman Designs. Now, let me explain a little bit why we're calling it Austin Harman Designs. The simple reality is I don't care for it to increase my fame or become famous or people to know my name necessarily. It's more about building a product and building a brand that can last far beyond me. And with Austin Harman Designs, it kind of fits in with the nomenclature of some of the other businesses that I operate, including Austin Harman Mixes. This is the Austin Harman Mixes channel. That is a dedicated business. If you're not aware, that business actually does audio trainings for 2024 coming later this year. We are also going to be doing live events, including live trainings where I come to a city near you and actually put on a full production, and we'll go through sound checks, have a worship band there, and provide all kinds of value to you. That's coming later this year. So that is Austin Harman Mixes. I also do all the content in the YouTube channel. And then I have the Penn Group, which is, Penn is my middle name, if you did not know that. And the Penn Group is my audio, video, and lighting installation company. And with the Penn Group, we primarily focus on churches, but we are looking to expand into other applications in other markets, including restaurant, casino gaming, commercial applications, really any need from an audio video perspective, event spaces, weddings, so on. We are really pushing hard into growing the install business this year. Very exciting there. And then finally, Austin Harman Designs. This is something that is my life's work. I've been working on this company for a long, long time. And the point of starting a speaker company is simple. I've always been an audio person. I've always been an audio fanatic. And at some point in time, I knew by a revelation of the Holy Spirit or the universe or however you want to classify it, I would choose the first option for me as a believer. But I believe that God gave me a vision to build a company, specifically a company that could build and empower the church. And with building a company that builds and manufactures speakers, I'm able to kind of equip the install company with speakers of my own design, but also to bring products to the market that can be at a level of excellence that is capable of inspiring other people. And with that, and after some years of work, we have prototypes and all of this stuff. So we are actually manufacturing our first run of speakers, fully finished products, here in another month or two, and we will be launching those products for sale coming this summer. Can you believe that timeline? So, with that being said, if you're interested in what's going on with Austin Harman Designs or want to keep up with the journey, or you want to be one of the first people to get an Austin Harman Design speaker, you can go to austinharmandesigns.com, fill in your email there, and we will keep you apprised of what's going on with Austin Harman Designs. Going to the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas is a major aspect of that. Company, Austin Harman Designs, as well as the Penn Group, so very excited about those things. Now, moving forward from all of that, that's a lot of stuff. Just to give you some more updates on what's going on in 2024. The Penn Group, our install company, has had a tremendous year so far. We have helped a lot of churches with their audio, video, and lighting needs, and we look forward to continuing to build that business and to build that impact on the church. So if you're a church out there that's listening to this and you need help with your audio, video, and lighting, my team would love to connect with you. Austin Harman Designs, the Penn Group, Austin Harman Mixes. The Penn Group specifically would love to connect with you. You can go to www.thepenn.group and fill in a little form there, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. We are told that we respond pretty quickly, so do go ahead and fill that out. Anyway, enough of that. All right, on to our topic for 2024, which is audio, video, and lighting installation, the things that you have to consider before you, as your church, your event space, corporate venue, whatever it is, before you do an AVL install. What should you do, or what should you consider? Now, I thought about doing a video about this, but I decided to record it in a podcast format because I thought that this conversation would be a little bit more easier to digest if I broke it up into sections and kind of gave it to you all at once, rather than trying to record a bunch of different videos that you had to click through and so on. Anyway, without further ado, let's kind of start small and work our way out. First of all, I myself, as the CEO of the Penn Group, I've overseen a litany of installs. I was also a production director at a larger church here in the Ohio area, where I was on the other side of the table. I was sitting where you sat, and it was my responsibility to help make decisions on behalf of the church to help the church achieve their goals. And that required me to make literally tens of thousands of decisions over quite a long period of time. And over that journey, I kind of endured a lot of, I would say, criticism, gained a lot of praise, had to, deal with business, had to deal with budgeting, had to deal with relationships with contractors, had to deal with all kinds of different things along the way. And some of the learnings that I offer you on this podcast are things that you should consider, or things that we've learned over the years based on working with a wide variety of different kinds of people. So the first thing is, I will say, don't ignore your ugly money. Now, what do I mean by that? if you're going to do an audio, video, or lighting install, most people will first and foremost look at, okay, well, what kind of lighting rig are we going to put in? What kind of video rig are we putting in? How big of an LED wall can we get? Can we get a bigger stereo than those guys down the street? Believe it or not, that's a thing. But often what's ignored is things that are actually really important and really fundamental to the way that an install should be done. And if you're working with an integrator, this is the first questions that you should ask. The first one is, what are we trying to achieve as a church? From a style perspective, what it is that you're trying to achieve as a church. Not every church wants to bang really hard. Not every church wants an acoustic feel. Some churches want to be more acoustic oriented. Some churches want to be more of a concert style experience. Some churches just want to flat out rock and roll. I see you, Central Church, Las Vegas. If you're from that church, give me a shout out in the comments. I would love to connect with you. Some churches just want to put on worship, and they don't really care about the quality of their production. They don't really care. They just need speakers, and then they want to go. Some churches are portable, and they have to consider setup and teardown situations. There's a lot of different styles, okay, that will inform all aspects of the install process. But determining what your style is and what it is you're going for is step number one. If you don't determine your style, you're going to have a serious challenge with getting through the rest of these steps. Step number two of the ugly money phase is infrastructure. Determining your style will inform what kinds of gear you want to select, and it will also inform what kind of infrastructure you need. What do I mean by that? Well, if you want a concert style experience, you're going to need a lot of power. You're going to need to consider whether your building can take the weight of that equipment. You're going to need to ensure that you have cables ran to the correct places. You're going to need to ensure that you can actually support the number of cameras that you want, the lighting that you want. You can actually hang the PA where you want to hang it. All of these things are informed, again, by style, but this is all ugly money. This is money that has to be spent before you can do any of the fun stuff, before you can go and select a PA, before you can go and hang any lights in there. The third aspect of the ugly money phase is considering hidden costs like freight. Whenever you're buying large equipment, it can be like, okay, maybe the cost is $1,000, which probably covers a screw anymore. And then you've got to pay 10% of that cost in freight because it costs money to ship those goods to the end customer. And in the days of Amazon, we expect shipping to be free, but in reality, most often that's not, especially if you're shipping very large, very expensive products. And then the final phase of the ugly money phase is budget, which is you have to understand that to do things right and to do a high quality install, all of the things that I mentioned in phase one, including getting the style right, which may seem like it's entirely on you, it may not be. I would challenge you to invite your integrator into that conversation. Infrastructure, freight costs, hidden costs, all of these things all wrap up into your budget, and it's going to take a chunk of said budget. You say, well, Austin, a budget, that's not an expense. That's your total amount to spend. Yes, I know that, but I actually included that as the part 4 here on purpose. Because you should dedicate a percentage of your overall project cost to your ugly money phase. But also, you need to have a budget selected, okay? You need to understand what's your total amount of money that you want to spend before you start doing gear selection, before you start bringing anybody to the table. You need to understand what your budget is. And this is so important, and let me kind of take a deep dive on this for a second. If you have a good integrator, okay, and you say, you know what, we want to spend $30,000, which these days is not very much money at all from an audio video lighting perspective. So you want to spend $30,000. Because that's a limited budget, and you're trying to fit both audio, video, and lighting in there, the integrator is going to be able to use their expertise, knowledge of gear, and hopefully present to you an option that maximizes that dollar spend in the best way possible, given your budget. You don't want to spend more than $30,000. Let the experts do the value engineering to help you get maximum value for the minimal amount of cost possible. That also includes your infrastructure, right? You've got to make sure that with that $30,000, you dedicate money for things like electrical service, running your lines, etc. Okay, ugly money phase. You've got to put in your infrastructure. You've got to select your budget. You've got to determine your style. And you've got to make sure that you have those things in place. Step number 2, which is what I would call the expert phase. Now, so often we run into, and by the way, that's step number 5 for those of you who are actually counting. This would be phase 2. For phase 2, this is the expert phase. You need to hire somebody, okay? For whatever reason in the church world specifically, we encounter a lot of churches that just don't want to pay for professionals. And they want to have somebody just kind of come in and just do things for free because either the church doesn't have the money or, whatever it is. And the simple reality is that, and I'm going to be controversial here, so if you disagree with this, let me hear it. But if you don't have the money to hire a professional and you're considering an audio video lighting install, then you don't have the money to buy the gear. Simple as that. Because if you are trying to take this on by yourself and not to involve a professional in the situation, what's going to happen is you're going to end up costing your organization a lot more money in the long run, because you're most probably going to make poor decisions whenever it comes to gear, whenever it comes to infrastructure, and whenever it comes to the operability of the system. And the simple reality is that there's 10 million ways to get one thing done in this world, and not having an expert or professional to be able to guide you through that opens you up to a lot of liability and a lot of risk. Okay, hire a professional. Who should we hire? My recommendation is that you should hire somebody local. I operate out of the Ohio area. We do travel, but most churches and most organizations want to work with somebody local. And the reason for that is they want to be able to pick up the phone and say, hey, we've got some problems. Can you come out and help us? And people need to be able to go and help. Now, that's not always the case. We do support clients from afar, but you should definitely consider somebody local. Secondly, you should consider somebody who wants to build a relationship first. For every client that we go in and talk to, our first priority is understanding really what it is they're trying to do first, and to build a relationship before we start talking dollars and cents and before we start talking gear. And the reason for that is that it's people first in this business. And it's not just about, trying to make the dollar, who cares? But it's about, building the church. The church is made up of people, and the leaders of the church are also people. And so often the leaders of the church also, they're so busy loving other people, they don't necessarily get loved on themselves. So from our perspective, we try to love on the people that we actually interact with from an install perspective. So I would challenge you, hire somebody local, hire somebody relationally. And then the final thing is make sure you hire somebody reputable. But there are integrators out there. I'm not aware of many that are successful, but there are some horror stories out there of people hiring maybe an inexperienced integrator, somebody who doesn't really actually know what they're doing, and they can kind of screw over an organization or make a church end up in a bad way or whatever it is. So make sure you hire somebody reputable. Okay, phase 3, the much more fun part, which is gear selection. Yeah, we're audio people, video people, lighting people. The fun part, the one part we all get to geek out about, is gear selection. And we're going to break this up into 3 phases, sub-phases of phase 3. Phase number 1 is audio, because we got to rock. Phase number 2 would be video. Phase number 3 would be lighting. Now, from a budget perspective, okay, how much should you spend on audio for your church? And the simple reality is this is how I would break it down. I would spend between 50 to 70% of your overall budget on audio. I would spend the remaining, if you go 50, I would spend approximately 30% on video. And if you move all the way up to the 70% category budget-wise on audio, I would do 20% on video. And then the remaining amount of budget you have is going to be lighting, okay? And this assumes that you've already carved out part of your budget for ugly money, so the remaining budget would be split up that way. Now, why on earth would you do 50 to 70% of the spend on audio? Well, Austin, you're an audio guy. Of course, you'd prioritize audio. Why should I listen to you? I'm a camera operator. I want our video to be the best. Okay, I get it. I understand. I'm an audio guy, but here's why I say that. The most important thing is that unlike anything else that gets installed outside of infrastructure, you can never move past the lid that is placed upon you by your audio system. Let me say that again. You can never outsuck your PA. It doesn't matter if you have Hillsong on stage with you. If you're playing through a crappy pair of Samson speakers that you bought off of Amazon for $50, but you've got a $60,000 LED wall behind you, you're never, ever going to sound nearly as good as you probably could, for one. And number two, the overall quality of the experience is going to be significantly diminished. And I cannot tell you how many times I've gone into churches or venues who have really, really expensive LED walls. I mean, we're talking $30, $40, $50, $70, $80,000 worth of LED walls. They had to put another $10,000 in electrical, and then they had to pay labor on top of that. And they've got an X32 in the back, and they've got speakers that were hung in 1986. And it just boggles my mind whenever I see this, because whenever you think about audio, nobody goes home humming the lights. Nobody goes home nursing their retinas. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need a gigantic LED wall if you're going to have a crappy audio system. And when people come to the church, they're coming to do two things. They're coming to listen to worship and to engage with God, and they're also coming to hear a message. Listen to worship and hear a message. They're not coming to watch your LED wall. And that is why I say you should prioritize your spend on audio, okay? Because it will be the lid of the quality of your whole system. Second point to that is if you prioritize audio, that's also one of the most difficult things to get right in an install. It's the most expensive thing to redo in an install for the most part. And also, it's one of the, you're not changing the audio system very often. Once you put an audio system up, it's going to sit up there for a long, long time. In some cases, 10, 15, even 20 years. And the usable lifespan of a PA anymore is 10 to 15 years minimum. And if you properly maintain it, sometimes you have to replace the drivers or whatever it is, replace the amps. But most PAs can last a long, long time. But an LED wall needs constant maintenance. Your cameras will get replaced every time a new TV comes out. And your lighting system it's got a very limited shelf life. 50 to 70% of your spend on audio. Okay? Now, what kind of audio system do we need? Do we need a point source or do we need a line array? That's a very controversial topic as well within the church. And the simple reality is that you need the audio system that an expert recommends for you. Simple as that. If the expert comes to the table, has done the acoustical analysis, understands your budget, understands what you're able to do, and they recommend something, it doesn't matter if you prefer a line array versus a point source. The numbers say what the numbers say. And yeah, in most situations, a line array will outperform a point source system, but it's not an end-all be-all, and that's why it's controversial, because it's not always that cut and dry, black and white. Sometimes point sources do perform better. In some cases, you need delays based on the shape of the room that would be challenging to implement with a line array system. So, all that to say, spend the majority of your budget on audio. Now, Austin, what kind of desk should we get? Well, hopefully a good one. I definitely wouldn't cheap out on that. But I'll be honest with you, the cost difference between a very high-end audio desk and a very kind of low-end mixer is huge. And most often, the sound quality is not that different. It is different, but not so different that a normal person would be able to really realistically tell the difference. So what I would challenge you to do is when you're picking your desk, think about things like channel count, think about things like flexibility of operation, think about things like volunteer usability, think about things like in your monitor mixes, is the band going to be comfortable with this setup? Those are the things that I would consider from a desk perspective. Now, audio, super important. No one goes home humming the lights, but live streaming is a thing. I actually did record a video about whether or not your church should live stream, but for some reason I had some issues with my video equipment that day and production people, and the quality was actually pretty poor, but anyway, should you live stream? The simple answer is yes. Yes, you should live stream. There's a lot of reasons for that, but you need to consider that as a part of your install. Video is, between 20 and 30, some cases 40% of the spend. I probably wouldn't go much more than 40%. I probably would go about 30% of the budget on the video stuff. Now, for video, there is a very significant kind of cost floor in video where you have to invest a lot of money to be able to get the right infrastructure to be able to support good video. What do I mean by that? Well, most people assume that all of your money on the video system is going to be spent on cameras. I would advise you not to do that. Instead, I would advise you to spend most of your money on things like your video switcher, your video recording equipment, Pro Presenter operation, or Pro Video Player, whatever your lower third / slide setup's going to be, and try to get by with cameras as best you can. Secondly, whenever it comes to video, is try to, in the best way that you can, implement systems that are going to be reliable, okay? If you're in the live streaming market, you do have to consider the fact that if your live stream goes down and you have a sizable number of people watching your live stream, that's going to be both problematic for the people watching and for your church's reputation, because in some cases that may be one of their only experiences with your church. And if they have technical problems, that's not going to leave a great taste in their mouth, okay? So prioritize your spend on infrastructure. Try to avoid the trap of spending all of your money on cameras and not having the gear to actually be able to run them. And focus on resilience. Now, finally, lighting. Believe it or not, I've always been a huge lighting guy. I love lights. I want it to look as big as possible. Bring on the haze, bring on the movers, bring on the blast. I want all of it. But lighting is the last thing on the list because it's the thing that matters the least, and it's the thing that costs not the most, but it's very, very expensive to get a sizable bang from a lighting perspective. And you can say, well, Austin, we could order Chinese fixtures from China and we could save all this money and they're $200 each. And here's what I'd say. You get what you pay for in lighting, okay? And from a reliability perspective, I would never recommend buying cheap lighting fixtures because you're going to end up having challenge with them, okay? I've been at churches where in the middle of the sermon, they bought DJ lighting fixtures that lost DMX, instantly went into automated show mode, and they flashed, and it looked like a rave in there in the middle of the sermon. And that actually happened at the church that I was a production director at. I didn't choose that equipment, but I came in, the lights started wigging out, and we had no choice but to run up there on stage in the middle of the sermon and unplug them. And it totally ruined the pastor's moment that he was making and everything. It just was a mess, okay? Lighting is the place where I would focus all of your spend from a lighting perspective on getting your stage wash, the front lights, right first, especially if you're going to live stream, okay? Having a bad lighting setup and good quality cameras will still equal bad video. I have good cameras. I have okay lights, even to record these videos, And I fight with these lights every single day trying to get great looking video. I'm still working on it. I tweak it. Simple reality is that the things that look cool are what draw our eyes. But the reality is that it's the things that you can't see that are the most important whenever you're planning for an audio video lighting install. So today, just to wrap up, we've talked about audio, we've talked about video, we've talked about lighting, we've talked about ugly money. And where do you go from here? How do you take all of this and prepare for your audio video lighting install? My strong recommendation is hire a professional. Bring in somebody who knows what they're doing to the table. If you'd like us to help you with your install, sales at the Penn Group, www.thepenn.group. We travel all over helping churches of all sizes with their audio video lighting needs. But if you want to work with somebody more local to you, or you have somebody in mind, do work with a professional. Make sure that you are well equipped to push your church to the future. That being said, this has been Austin Harman Mixes podcast. Thank you so much for joining episode number 5. I love you guys. God bless you. We'll see you next week.